The ultimatum. The message arrived without warning on a Monday morning. Every digital screen across Earth simultaneously flickered, then displayed the same alien script that slowly transformed into various human languages. In the United Nations Emergency Response Center, Secretary General Maya Hassan watched in shocked silence as the message rendered in crisp English. Inhabitants of Sol 3, your star system now falls within territory claimed by the Zenith Dominion. Your world has been cataloged as Resource Extraction Planet, DD 11742. Prepare for the arrival of Dominion representatives within one planetary rotation. Resistance is futile and will result in immediate planetary sterilization. Compliance will allow limited survival rights. The room erupted in chaos. Military advisors shouted about defense options. Scientists frantically analyzed the transmission's origin. Political leaders demanded action plans. But Secretary General Hassan remained still, her mind racing to process the implications of what they'd just witnessed. "Get me every world leader on secure channels," she finally said, her voice cutting through the noise. "And find Dr. Eliza Morgan. Immediately." Within 2 hours, the most extraordinary conference in human history convened. Leaders from 195 nations joined the emergency session, faces grim as they received the briefing. The Zenith Dominion ships had been detected at the edge of our solar system, massive structures that dwarfed anything humans had ever built. Admiral James Chen, head of the United Space Defense Force, didn't sugarcoat his assessment. Their vessels measure between 15 to 30 kilometers in length. Energy readings suggest weapons capabilities that could crack our planet's crust. We have nothing, I repeat, nothing, that could meaningfully oppose them. President Rodriguez of the North American Alliance slammed his fist on the table. "So we just surrender? Become slaves on our own planet?" "Not necessarily," said a quiet voice from the back. All heads turned toward the slender woman who had just entered. Dr. Eliza Morgan looked exhausted, her lab coat wrinkled, eyes intense behind rumpled dark hair. Few people outside scientific circles recognized her, but Secretary General Hassan had specifically requested her presence. "Dr. Morgan heads our quantum propulsion initiative," Hassan explained. "Doctor, please share what you told me earlier." Morgan stepped forward, connecting her tablet to the room's display system. "For the past 8 years, my team has been developing something we call displacement drive technology. It allows for faster-than-light travel without the theoretical limitations of traditional approaches." Murmurs spread through the assembly as Morgan continued. "We've successfully tested small-scale prototypes. The technology works. With proper resources and global cooperation, we could scale it to build ships. Large ships." "How large?" President Rodriguez asked. "Large enough to evacuate Earth." The room fell silent. "That's impossible," Russia's premier finally said. "You're suggesting we transport 8 billion people off-planet." Morgan's expression remained steady. "I'm suggesting exactly that. We can build arcs, massive generation ships equipped with displacement drives. Not overnight, but faster than anyone would believe possible." "While what?" "Pretending to submit to these invaders," China's president asked skeptically. Morgan nodded. "Precisely. We make them believe we're complying while secretly preparing our departure. The Dominion clearly values our planet's resources, not our people." Their message made that clear enough. Admiral Chen looked thoughtful. "How long would you need?" "With global resources and coordination, 18 months. The debate raged for hours. Some leaders insisted on military resistance despite the hopelessness. Others argued for genuine submission, hoping to negotiate better terms. But as hours passed and more data arrived about the advancing alien fleet, Morgan's radical proposal gained traction. Secretary General Hassan called for a final vote. Those in favor of initiating Project Exodus. One by one, hands raised. Not all at once, and not without visible reluctance, but ultimately, humanity chose its path. "Then it's decided," Hassan said, her voice heavy with the weight of the decision. "We will appear to submit while secretly preparing humanity's departure. May future generations forgive us for abandoning our cradle." The next day, Zenith Dominion ships entered Earth orbit, sleek vessels with organic-looking curves and pulsing energy patterns along their hulls. From them descended smaller craft carrying the promised representatives, tall, segmented beings with iridescent exoskeletons and multiple limbs, ending in precise manipulators. The primary overseer, as it called itself, stood nearly 3 meters tall in the repurposed UN General Assembly Hall. Its voice emerged from a translation device that rendered its clicking speech into flat, emotionless English. "The Zenith Dominion recognizes your submission. Your cooperation will determine your species' longevity." The overseer gestured with upper limbs that moved with unsettling precision. "Your governments will provide labor quotas for resource extraction. You will provide biological samples for cataloging. You will surrender all advanced technology for evaluation." Secretary General Hassan, chosen to represent humanity in this first meeting, maintained a carefully crafted expression of respectful fear. "We understand, Overseer. Humanity accepts the Dominion's authority. We ask only for guidance on how best to serve." The act seemed to satisfy the alien. "Acceptable. Construction of primary extraction facilities will begin immediately. Your leaders will report to Dominion sub-overseers assigned to each continental region." When the meeting concluded, Hassan returned to the secure facility 20 levels beneath the UN building. There, Dr. Morgan and a growing team of the world's best scientists, engineers, and logistics experts had already begun work. "How did it go?" Morgan asked, looking up from holographic schematics. "They believe me," Hassan replied, sinking into a chair. "God help me, I think they actually believed I was submitting on behalf of all humanity." Admiral Chen nodded grimly. "Their arrogance works in our favor. They can't conceive that a primitive species would attempt anything but resistance or submission." "Which buys us time," Morgan said, turning back to the plans. "We'll need every second." Within weeks, Project Exodus transformed from concept to reality, while humanity appeared to comply with Dominion demands on the surface, building extraction facilities, providing resources, accepting alien monitoring. An unprecedented secret operation unfolded beneath the facade. Deep underground facilities, abandoned mines, underwater construction platforms, and remote mountain ranges became shipyards. The designs evolved rapidly, enormous vessels built in sections that could be assembled quickly when the time came. Morgan's displacement drives were manufactured in scattered locations, then secretly transported to assembly points. Education systems were quietly reworked, training people for life in space and eventual planetary settlement. Every person on Earth received classified instructions through secure channels: what to prepare, what skills to develop, what single bag of irreplaceable items they could bring. Food production doubled under the guise of meeting Dominion quotas, with half directed to hydroponic systems being built into the Ark ships. Materials ostensibly mined for the aliens were diverted in carefully calculated amounts to construct hull sections, life support systems, and energy generators. 6 months after the Dominion's arrival, Dr. Morgan led Secretary General Hassan through a massive underground cavern in what had once been a salt mine beneath the Austrian Alps. "Ark 7, Morgan said proudly, gesturing at the partially completed vessel that filled the enormous space. "Each Ark will house approximately 40 million people in rotating habitation rings. We're building 200 of them." Hassan stared in awe at the structure. "How are we keeping this hidden?" "Their surveillance technology is focused on resource extraction and detecting weapons development," Admiral Chen said, joining them. "They're watching for rebellion, not escape. And we've developed sophisticated jamming systems that mask these specific energy signatures. The real question," Morgan added, "is whether people can keep the secret. 8 billion people knowing about Exodus." Hassan nodded solemnly. "It's the greatest risk. But what choice do we have?" The Dominion sees us as expendable labor until they fully automate their operations here. Reports suggest they've already begun sterilization procedures on certain population segments. The Pacific Rim ARCs report they're ahead of schedule, Chen noted, checking his secure tablet. African Union construction is on target. We're actually making this happen. But will we finish in time? Hassan asked. The Dominion is accelerating their resource demands. Morgan's expression hardened with determination. We'll make it. Humanity doesn't have any other option. As month 9 of the occupation arrived, the first major crisis emerged. Dominion sensors detected unusual energy signatures near the former Japanese islands. An inspection team was dispatched to investigate what turned out to be a major arc construction facility built into an underwater caldera. Admiral Chen personally led the emergency response team. Using experimental stealth technology, they intercepted the Dominion craft before it could report its findings. The aliens were neutralized, their communications blocked. We've bought ourselves perhaps 3 days before they realize their team is missing. Chen reported to the Exodus Command Council. We need to accelerate the timeline. Dr. Morgan shook her head in frustration. The arcs aren't ready. The displacement drives need at least another 2 months of calibration. Then we need a diversion, President Rodriguez said. Something big enough to explain the energy signatures they detected and distract them from looking deeper. The council debated through the night. By morning, they had a plan. Dangerous, but necessary. 3 days later, Mount Fuji erupted in a carefully engineered geological event. Not destructive enough to threaten major population centers, but dramatic enough to create a massive electromagnetic pulse and atmospheric interference that would confuse Dominion sensors. The Dominion accepted the explanation that experimental geothermal energy projects, designed to meet their resource quotas, had triggered the eruption. Their missing inspection team was explained as having been lost in the initial event. But the close call accelerated Project Exodus. The original 18-month timeline contracted to 14. Every human on Earth worked double shifts, maintaining the appearance of submission while secretly preparing for humanity's greatest journey. 1 year after the Zenith Dominion's arrival, the arcs were 80% complete. Displacement drives had been installed in 175 of the 200 vessels. Population assignments had been finalized, with every living human given a specific arc designation, habitation section, and role. On the surface, humanity continued to labor under alien oversight. Mining operations tore into Earth's crust. Forests fell to create processing plants. Oceans were seeded with Dominion biotech that altered marine ecosystems to produce resources the aliens valued. The primary overseer seemed pleased with humanity's compliance, remarking to Secretary General Hassan during their monthly review, "Your species adapts well to servitude. Perhaps a portion will be maintained indefinitely rather than replaced with automation." Hassan forced herself to smile gratefully at what the alien considered a compliment. "We live to serve the Dominion." Behind her diplomatic facade, the final phases of Exodus accelerated. The question was no longer if humanity could build its escape vessels, but whether they could launch them without being detected and destroyed. Admiral Chen developed the critical distraction plan, a coordinated series of events that would occupy the Dominion's attention during the critical launch window. He selected volunteers who understood they likely wouldn't make it to the arcs themselves. "The sacrifice teams will ensure the rest of humanity escapes," he explained during the final command briefing. "I'll be leading the primary team personally." Dr. Morgan objected immediately. "James, we need you on the arcs. Your military experience is exactly why I need to lead the distraction," he interrupted gently. "Someone has to make sure it works. The arcs will have plenty of capable leaders." As the launch date approached, tensions rose. Minor security breaches occurred as the pressure of maintaining the deception took its toll. A Dominion sub-overseer in the North American sector noticed discrepancies in population reports. A monitoring drone in East Africa captured images of unusual underground activity. Each potential exposure was handled with increasing desperation. Dominion officials were bribed with rare Earth elements. Data systems were hacked and records altered. In a few cases, direct elimination of alien observers became necessary, actions that risked exposing everything if discovered. 14 months after the arrival of the Zenith Dominion, humanity stood ready to abandon its home world. The arcs, hidden in 200 locations around the globe, were fully provisioned and prepared for launch. The displacement drives had been successfully tested at minimal power. Every human knew their assignment and waited for the signal. Secretary General Hassan met with the primary overseer for what she knew would be their final interaction. The alien seemed distracted, its multiple limbs moving in agitated patterns. Resource quotas have decreased by 4.8% in the European sector, it noted. Explanation required. Hassan offered practiced excuses about equipment failures and weather conditions. The overseer seemed skeptical, but accepted the explanation with a warning. Continued inefficiency will result in punitive measures. The Dominion's patience is not unlimited. We understand completely, Hassan replied. I personally guarantee improvement by next cycle. She knew there would be no next cycle. As she left the Dominion headquarters, the repurposed United Nations building in New York, she allowed herself one final glance at the Manhattan skyline. By this time tomorrow, no human would remain to see it. That night, in secure communication channels across the planet, the final countdown began. Operation Exodus would commence at dawn. Operation Exodus. Dawn broke over a planet holding its breath. In homes across Earth, families gathered their single allowed bags, containing irreplaceable mementos, cultural treasures, and genetic samples of Earth's biodiversity. Children clutched favored toys, while parents double-checked the assigned ARC numbers tattooed on inner wrists for security. The elderly shared knowing glances, many having volunteered to remain behind to maintain the deception as long as possible. 3 hours before the scheduled launch, Admiral James Chen activated his strike teams. Operation Blackout began with precision strikes on key Dominion communication relays. These weren't meant to destroy, merely to create confusion and draw attention. Phase 1 complete, Chen reported from his command center beneath the Rockies. Move to Phase 2. Across the globe, carefully engineered industrial accidents occurred simultaneously. Power plants overloaded. Processing facilities reported containment breaches. Transportation networks suffered catastrophic failures. None caused significant casualties, but all demanded immediate Dominion attention. The primary overseer, confronted with multiple emergencies, called an unprecedented meeting of all sub-overseers, pulling them from their monitoring stations. These incidents show unacceptable incompetence, it raged, multifaceted eyes flashing with cold fury. If deliberate sabotage is discovered, planetary sterilization protocols will be initiated. Secretary General Hassan, attending her final meeting with the alien leadership, maintained her mask of terrified submission. We're investigating every incident, Overseer. Initial findings suggest solar flare activity has affected our power grids and safety systems. Solar anomalies were not forecast, the Overseer replied suspiciously. Our primitive monitoring systems must have missed the warning signs, Hassan offered. Please allow us to correct these failures before considering more severe responses. While the Dominion leadership focused on the growing list of surface emergencies, Dr. Eliza Morgan initiated the final launch sequence. From her position in the Master Control Center hidden 2 kilometers beneath the Antarctic ice shelf, she sent the encrypted signal that would coordinate humanity's exodus. All ARCs report ready status, her assistant confirmed. Boarding is 97% complete worldwide. Morgan nodded, checking the final diagnostics on her tablet. Displacement drive synchronization is optimal. Admiral Chen reports Dominion attention is focused on the Northern Hemisphere as planned. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Every human alive had kept this secret. Every person had played their part. Despite impossible odds, they stood ready to escape rather than submit. to abandon their home rather than live as slaves. "Begin launch countdown," she ordered. T-minus 60 minutes. The first Ark to launch was Ark 117, hidden in a massive cavern beneath the Sahara Desert. Its enormous hull, nearly 5 kilometers long, rose silently through specially constructed doors that opened into what appeared to be a normal mining operation. Using gravitational dampening technology developed specifically for the Exodus, the vessel made almost no seismic impact as it accelerated upward. Within minutes, Arks began launching from locations across the southern hemisphere, the regions furthest from the manufactured crisis drawing Dominion attention northward. Each vessel followed precise trajectories calculated to minimize detection, keeping Earth's mass between them and the majority of Dominion sensors. In New York, Admiral Chen implemented the final phase of the distraction. His team initiated what appeared to be a desperate human uprising against the Dominion headquarters. Using conventional weapons that posed no real threat to the aliens, they created a convincing display of rebellion. Human insurrection detected at Primary Administrative Center. The Sub-Overseer for North America reported urgently. Recommend immediate response. The Primary Overseer dispatched enforcement units to crush the apparent rebellion. This explains the synchronized failures, it concluded. A coordinated attack. Secretary General Hassan, maintaining her role until the last possible moment, appeared appropriately horrified. Overseer, I had no knowledge of this. These must be isolated extremists. The majority of humanity remains loyal to the Dominion. While Dominion forces mobilized against a rebellion strategically designed to fail, the true plan succeeded beyond expectations. By the time the first Ark reached lunar orbit, 40 more had already launched. The displacement drives remained powered down, leaking minimal energy signatures as the vessels used conventional propulsion to reach safe activation distance. In Antarctica, Dr. Morgan monitored the Exodus from the Master Control Center. 112 Arks successfully launched, her systems reported. 67 at safe displacement activation range. No Dominion pursuit detected. She allowed herself a moment of cautious hope. Continue launches. Maintain blackout protocols. Admiral Chen's diversionary attack reached its climax. His forces breached the outer security of the Dominion headquarters in a move that appeared threatening enough to draw the full attention of alien security systems. Dominion battle cruisers moved into low Earth orbit, weapons systems charging. You have sealed your species' fate, the Primary Overseer announced over global communication channels. Planetary sterilization will commence in one planetary rotation. Chen, knowing his role was nearly complete, transmitted the final all clear to the remaining Arks. Dominion attention fully engaged. Complete launches immediately. It's been an honor serving with you all. With his message sent, he led his team into their final confrontation, not to win, but to maintain the deception for precious additional minutes. As the diversionary forces fought their doomed battle, the last Arks rose from Earth's surface. Morgan's Antarctic Command Center was among the final locations to launch, its entire facility revealed to be a massive Ark unlike the others. Ark Prime launching now, she reported as the enormous vessel broke through the ice sheet. Admiral Chen, your sacrifice will not be forgotten. There was no response. The New York team had gone silent. By the time the Primary Overseer realized the true nature of humanity's plan, 197 Arks had successfully reached displacement drive activation range. The remaining 3, damaged during launch by technical failures, continued on conventional drives, their crews knowing they might never reach the rendezvous points. Detect and destroy all fleeing vessels. The Overseer commanded, finally understanding the magnitude of the deception. No humans must escape. Dominion warships pivoted from their positions around Earth, weapons charging as they locked onto the nearest Arks. The first salvos struck 2 vessels, damaging but not destroying them as their defensive systems absorbed much of the impact. All Arks with operational displacement drives, activate now. Morgan ordered, watching as Dominion ships accelerated toward them. One by one, the arcs vanished from normal space, not all traveling to the same destination, but dispersing according to carefully planned colonization protocols. Some vessels took damage before activating their drives, but the majority escaped unscathed. Arc Prime was among the last to activate its displacement drive. As the massive ship prepared to leave Earth's solar system forever, Dr. Morgan stood at the main observation window. Below her, the blue and green sphere that had been humanity's only home for hundreds of thousands of years grew smaller. Displacement drive activating in 30 seconds, the ship's AI announced. Morgan placed her palm against the transparent material, tears streaming freely down her face. "Goodbye," she whispered to the receding planet. "May we be worthy of your sacrifice." In a flash of quantum energy, Arc Prime disappeared from Earth's sky, leaving behind an enraged Dominion and a handful of brave souls who'd ensured humanity's escape. The journey was not easy. The displacement drives, while functional, required frequent recalibration. Life support systems on several arcs developed issues that necessitated creative solutions. 17 arcs were lost during the initial journey. Mechanical failures, navigation errors, or perhaps Dominion pursuit, though no confirmation ever came. But the majority reached their designated destinations, habitable worlds carefully selected from astronomical data, far from known Dominion territories. Some planets were paradise-like, with breathable atmospheres and abundant resources. Others required significant adaptation and terraforming. Each became a new cradle for human civilization. On New Terra, the planet reached by Arc Prime, Dr. Eliza Morgan lived to see the first generation of true colonists born. Children who would never know Earth except through stories and preserved images. She established the Exodus Academy, where Earth's history and the truth of humanity's flight was taught alongside the sciences needed for survival. "We did not flee out of cowardice," she told the first graduating class, her hair now white with age, but her eyes still sharp. "We fled because sometimes survival requires knowing when to fight and when to find another path." The Zenith Dominion expected either submission or feudal resistance. We chose a third option. 50 years after the Exodus, the scattered human colonies had grown and prospered. The quantum communication network Morgan had designed before leaving Earth allowed instantaneous contact between settlements, creating a unified human civilization spread across 23 star systems. On the colony world Haven, Admiral Chen's daughter Mai had followed in her father's footsteps, becoming commander of the newly formed Colonial Defense Force. Unlike her father, who had sacrificed himself so others might escape, Mai focused on ensuring humanity would never need to flee again. "The Dominion believed us primitive," she told her officers during a strategic briefing. "That belief allowed our ancestors to escape, but they will not underestimate us a second time." Under her direction, humanity's technological development accelerated at an unprecedented pace. The displacement drive technology that had saved them from Earth evolved into weapons systems and defensive shields far beyond what they had managed to develop during the frantic Exodus preparations. 100 years after leaving Earth, humanity had changed. Adaptations to different planetary environments had created subtle variations in human physiology. Cultural divergences emerged between colonies, but through it all, they maintained their connection and a shared purpose. In the Grand Council chamber on New Terra, representatives from all human colonies gathered for the centennial of the Exodus. The meeting opened with the traditional moment of silence for Earth and those who had remained behind. "For 100 years, we have rebuilt," Council President Omar Hernandez said when the silence ended. "We have grown from desperate refugees to a thriving interstellar civilization. The question before us today is, are we ready to reclaim what was taken from us?" The chamber erupted in debate. Some argued humanity should remain hidden, continuing to build strength away from Dominion attention. Others insisted the time had come to return to Earth, not as conquerors, but as liberators. Dr. Marcus Morgan, great-grandson of Eliza Morgan, presented the findings from the long-range observation posts that had monitored Earth from afar. "The Dominion continues to extract resources, he reported, displaying holographic images of a planet significantly changed. Their automated systems have stripped large portions of the surface, but our homeworld's core remains intact. Terraforming could restore it, given time. Admiral Mai Chen, now in her 70s but still commanding the respect of the military leadership, offered the strategic assessment. Our fleet now numbers over 5,000 vessels. Displacement weapon technology has been perfected. Our simulations suggest we have reached approximate parity with Dominion military capabilities. The debate continued for weeks. In the end, the decision was made not by vote, but by unanimous acclamation. Humanity would return to Sol. The journey back to Earth took place 120 years after the Exodus. A fleet of 10,000 ships, warships, colony vessels, and massive terraforming platforms appeared in Earth's orbit in a synchronized displacement jump that announced humanity's return with unmistakable boldness. The Dominion mining operations on the planet's surface went silent as automated systems detected the massive human fleet. Emergency signals flashed across Dominion communication networks, summoning a response force. Admiral Serena Chen, great-granddaughter of James Chen and granddaughter of May, stood on the bridge of the flagship Exodus Remembered. Beside her, Council President Hernandez and Dr. Morgan waited as the first Dominion warships arrived. Unidentified vessels, you have entered restricted Zenith Dominion space. Identify yourselves or face immediate destruction, came the familiar translated voice, so similar to what their ancestors had heard over a century before. Admiral Chen stepped forward, her uniform bearing the insignia of combined human colonies. This is Admiral Serena Chen of the United Human Worlds. We are not unidentified. We are the former inhabitants of this world, and we have returned. A moment of silence followed before the Dominion commander responded, its tone containing what might have been surprise. Impossible. The Sol 3 indigenous species was largely eliminated during resource extraction procedures. Not eliminated, Chen replied. Evacuated. We left of our own accord when you thought. This planet is Dominion territory, the alien insisted. Your presence is unauthorized. Dispersal or destruction will commence immediately. Serena Chen's expression hardened, so reminiscent of her great-grandfather's determined courage. No, that time has passed. We offer you one opportunity to withdraw peacefully from this system. Earth belongs to humanity, now and always. The Dominion does not negotiate with lesser species, came the reply as their weapons systems activated. What followed was not the one-sided confrontation the Dominion expected. Humanity's century of focused technological development had erased the advantage their former oppressors once held. The battle for Earth's orbit lasted less than 6 hours, ending with the retreat of the remaining Dominion vessels. As the dust of battle cleared, Admiral Chen, President Hernandez, and Dr. Morgan boarded a shuttle to descend to Earth's surface, the first humans to set foot on their ancestral home in over a century. They landed in what had once been Central Park in Manhattan, now an industrial processing center scarred by decades of resource extraction. The air was thinner than Earth's original atmosphere, the landscape barren where lush vegetation had once grown. Dr. Morgan knelt to touch the soil, running it through his fingers. It will take decades to heal the damage, he said, but Earth remembers us. And we remember her. President Hernandez looked across the altered landscape to where the ruins of the old United Nations building still partially stood, the former headquarters of the Dominion on Earth. We left rather than submit or fight a war we couldn't win. Now we return not just as warriors, but as healers. Admiral Chen unfolded a small electronic device and pressed her thumb to the scanner. A compartment opened, revealing a small container of soil, preserved for generations by her family. My great-grandfather collected this before the Exodus, she explained. He gave it to his wife before leading the diversion team, asking that it be returned someday. She knelt and mixed the preserved soil with the damaged earth beneath them, a symbolic reuniting of humanity with its home. The Dominion will return in greater numbers, she said, rising to her feet. This was just their local response force. "And we'll be ready," President Hernandez replied. "Not just here, but across 23 colonies. Humanity no longer has just one home to defend." As terraforming ships began their work in orbit, the first wave of human settlers descended to begin the long process of reclaiming their ancestral planet. They brought with them seeds preserved from Earth's original biosphere, animal embryos maintained in cryogenic storage, and the determination that had allowed their species to survive extinction. On a hill overlooking what had once been New York Harbor, a memorial was erected, not a celebration of military victory, but a tribute to those who had remained behind during the Exodus. At its center stood a statue of Admiral James Chen, the man who had sacrificed everything so others might escape. The inscription, written in all human languages and even in the Dominion script, read simply, "We left to survive. We return to thrive. Earth abides." The Zenith Dominion would indeed return, bringing a war that would last for generations. But humanity would never again be forced from its cradle. The species that had chosen flight over submission had learned, grown, and returned with the strength to defend what was rightfully theirs. And throughout human space, on every colony world where children gazed up at unfamiliar stars, they were taught the most important lesson from the Exodus. Sometimes courage means finding a third option when enemies expect either surrender or destruction. Sometimes victory comes not from standing your ground, but from living to fight another day.